I believe, yes, I am.
Yep.
Good.
Okay, we'll bring the meeting to order if everyone's ready to start. Do I have a motion to pass, approve the minutes from 11:05?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Uh,
Okay.
I actually need to do a roll call
need to call
first.
the roll.
I'm sorry, I'm getting too ahead of myself, so do a roll call.
That's okay. Just say here, if you are present, Charles Alexander,
Here.
Mary Jane Campbell, Brad Finch,
Here.
Rick Fox,
Here.
Turner Gall, Jennifer Moats,
Here.
Prentice Oldham,
Here,
and Russ Edwards.
Here.
Okay. All right. Okay. We do have a quorum. Can proceed.
okay. Now you can call the roll again on the minutes.
Okay. Could I get a clarification? Brad, did you make the motion?
Yes, I did.
Rick, did you second?
Yes, I did, Annette.
Thank you so much. Okay. All voting, when I call your name, if you're in favor of the approval of the minutes, please say aye. No for opposed. Charles Alexander,
Aye.
Brad Finch,
Aye.
Rick Fox,
Aye.
Jennifer Moats,
Aye.
and Prentice Oldham.
Aye.
Okay.
Now, you said we needed to add this amendment tonight is that what you want to do, Annette?
You just need to possibly amend the agenda to have the discussion about the form. The ordinance has already, and Russ may want to speak to this, but the ordinance itself has already passed, been approved by general committee. It will be going to BOMA on December 8th for approval for the first reading.
This is for discussion only for the beer board, am I correct?
You are correct.
Okay,
So, yeah.
so do I have a motion to amend the agenda to add this for discussion only to our agenda tonight?
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
Who
would
was
you
the
call the
second?
roll in that? We have
Yeah, who was the second, please?
Brad.
Yes.
Brad? Okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor, say aye. No for opposed. Okay, Charles Alexander,
Aye.
Brad Finch,
Aye.
Rick Fox,
Aye.
Jennifer Moats,
Aye.
and Prentice Oldham.
Aye.
Okay, approved
Okay.
unanimously.
Do what? I'm
It
sorry.
was approved unanimously. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
good to go.
Okay. Okay, first on the agenda would be the special occasion beer permit for the historical rock castle.
Okay. Sam, did you make it? I don't see him. Andy, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let me just fill in real quick. Andy is here to speak on behalf of Sam for the Hometown Jam events at Rock Castle. Sam called me just a bit ago. He's out of town, actually was on the road at the time, and where he was going to be, he was not sure if there was going to be a good Wi-Fi signal. So he did say that everything, the events other than the 2 Hometown Jam events at Rock Castle are the same as they were last year, same type of thing, and that Andy may need or like to speak on behalf of the Hometown Jam events.
So I've got a question. Last month's meeting, we approved historic Rock Castle events, which included the Hometown Jam concert series, which was identified as 7 events. And those are the same 7 events that are in this new application here that we're looking at. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying, okay, so why are we looking at this again?
We didn't do all 7 last month. It was just 1.
Okay.
And they are presenting all of their events per the ordinance, the full 7 events that they know about right now, which may bring into question the discussion to have later regarding that particular section of the ordinance, because there was a little confusion on that last month. That was just a one-time event in November. I don't even remember the date. If it was November, December. I don't have that in front of me. I apologize. But these events are the new ones for 2021 that we can approve all at once if the board sees fit.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any?
Can I just ask another question?
Sure.
Sure.
If this is approved, does Sam have to come and pick up the 7 individual permits, or can Nate do it in place of him?
Someone associated with the event does need to pick them up. That is specifically spelled out in the ordinance as a requirement. So we would
could it
let-
be Nate, or does he not qualify?
I don't know that we have parameters set that it determines who. Preferably, it would be someone representing the nonprofit, but we know Nate is associated with these events, so, and he is the one that's going to be serving. I personally, unless John Bradley tells me differently, I believe it would be fine for Nate to pick those up.
Well, and I see Sam came on. I guess my only point was, and I think we had this discussion, Nate, last month. I would just strongly encourage you and Sam to be sure that you pick up each and every one of them, because I would hate to have one not picked up and it come back to bite you guys. I'm not out there to do that. I just want you to protect yourselves. That's all.
Sure, I don't mind being a backup to pick these up. I know Sam works at his job until 3 o'clock, so sometimes the timing is bad. So, if that ever happened, I'd be willing to pick them up.
It's certainly fine with me, and I would leave that personally between you and Annette and Sam. I just would not like to see us get into the situation we got into this year, where all of a sudden there's been an event and we found out that one of the permits was never picked up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Annette.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any more questions on this?
No, other than, it's going to be your typical process and procedures relative to control and access to the beer garden, whatever it might be, and the carting procedures, right?
Yes, same as always.
Okay.
I move to approve all 7.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and second. Annette, would you please call the roll?
Yes, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. No for opposed. Charles Alexander.
Aye.
Bradley Finch.
Aye.
Rick Fox.
Aye.
Jennifer Moats.
Aye.
And Prentice Oldham.
Aye.
And the motion passed unanimously.
Okay, now
Thank you
we're,
all.
Mm-hmm. So Sam, are you there?
You're muted,
Sam's
Sam.
there. He's just muted.
Yes, can you hear me?
Hey, Sam, I just want to let you know that these will be available. I'll get them signed now. It's the way the ordinance reads, it's to pick them up before each event, not all at once.
That's fine.
Okay, so
You're fine with my wife or another Rock Castle employee picking them up.
as long as they show us ID, we should be good. I will double check with John Bradley just to make sure. I don't see a problem with that personally, but I will double check on that, but that should be fine.
All right.
I will
Thank
let
you.
you know otherwise.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good luck, gentlemen.
okay, now we're to the discussion on the ordinance. Russ, you want to talk on this or anything?
Well, Annette was correct that this ordinance, I don't have the number right in front of me. It's the, if I could pull it up, the one.
42, Russ.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that it went through general committee in October. Yeah, 2020-42. We discussed that before and it was approved unanimously by the beer board. It went through the general committee and was approved unanimously, and it's set to go for first reading on Tuesday, December 8th. And so it'll probably pass. I'd imagine it will pass. And there is no second BOMA meeting in December. That's been canceled. So the next BOMA meeting would be the first meeting in January, which is the second Tuesday in January. So it'll probably pass then. And once it passes, I can give a report back that it passed. And if everybody remembers what that was, that had to do with tap rooms and giving different percentages of what of the beer consumed on the premises was. And I think Annette sent that ordinance out today to everybody.
Mhm.
And I
Yes.
think Annette had Annette can speak to this. It's the form or the audit form that Nate at Half Batch would need to fill out. That would reflect the total number of volume of beer sales. And I guess she came up with it. I'm sure she could speak more about this.
That was
Yeah, go ahead.
that was included in your email, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
Word document.
What I compile this now, I can definitely change this if you guys see something that needs to read differently, or if I've not expressed it clear enough. But I took the proposed ordinance and the reading of what you guys had wanted to be reported on the form and created this. And I wanted you to look over it and make sure that it meets all of the specifics that you wanted to be reported.
Is there a
And
reason
this
why
is
you started
nothing-
in April and that?
That is when we do our others. I just was being consistent with the gross audit sales, the retail sales. And that's just, I just used that form and changed the headings.
And I guess
This-
that's fine. I guess my other question, just Nate, since you're still here and you're basically the person that's going to have to complete this, is there anything on there that either causes you any heartburn or difficulty or anything you'd like to see changed that as opposed to the way it's designed?
I haven't seen it.
I didn't, I don't think I sent it
It
to
looks
him.
great, Nate. Trust us.
I will send it to you. I'll be glad to send it to you. And then if you have any issues, let me know. Because like I said, it's still draft form. We've got till January before this is official anyway. And we wouldn't be compiling until April. So I just wanted to get that done and get that before you to make sure everything's okay. And then it's definitely changeable.
I mean, I, for one, and I think it's fine.
Okay, and this is not, the board does not have to vote on this. Finance is allowed to do the forms necessary for reporting and documentation. But again, just wanted to put it before your eyes.
Well, it would probably also support you if anybody did question it. You could say it went before the beer board and they were comfortable with it.
True.
Annette, I do have a question I just thought of looking at this when it said, because the ordinance says, refers to the percentage of sales on an annual basis. Are we going based upon our fiscal year, which would run from July through the end of June? What do you?
These are, yes, these are done on a fiscal year basis. And we just pull the last quarter. And I mean, we can change that. It doesn't have to be. And we just do the last 3 months on the regular gross receipts, the sales for like the restaurants that they all submit and turn into us, which has quite a bit more information, but none of that applied in this case. So yes, it would be that percentage overall annually as the ordinance reads. But
in this case, that you probably wouldn't go back till any further than say February anyway, because the ordinance hasn't been approved yet.
Correct.
Yeah, he wouldn't even be able to do that until
at least probably February, Russ.
Yeah, it would become law the first meeting in January if everything goes as planned.
Right.
And then how does the manufacturer verify that he doesn't go above 25%?
That is, now Nate, you may wish to speak to this, especially if I say it incorrectly. I believe that's based on the records that he keeps internally.
Yeah, that would be based on the records I keep to pay the state barrelage and the wholesale tax to the state.
Okay.
So is it,
I break it out in our point of sale system.
yeah,
On premise sales are broken out individually versus all the other.
yeah, I was just gonna ask you if that was tied back to your point of sale system.
So if, Nate, if anybody felt the need to audit, they just come like they would anything else, look at your point of sale system and compare it with the data that's there.
Yeah, I can always run the raw reports if somebody wanted to see those for sure.
Does anyone have any questions on that or on any of it?
As I said, it looks fine to me, but I think Nate, if it would probably be helpful in that if Nate at least got to eyeball it and just see if there was anything that, you know, didn't quite fit with what he's got to report, not to let him get away with anything, but just to make it as easy as possible for everybody.
I am going to send it to him.
Hey, Nate, are you on a calendar year for your business, for your financial reporting? Just out of curiosity.
Yes, for January 1st to December 31st.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that needs to go in there as a calendar year for the previous 12 months.
You want to change to a calendar year? Is that what you're saying?
So
I was thinking of that too, how that could,
I mean, I'd be happy to report it for any rolling 12-month period. That makes sense. I mean, it should always be, you know, under the limit for any 12-month rolling period.
Right.
because I'm just trying to think how, because some months may be different than others. How do we average it out?
Well,
Maybe it's
that-
sometimes in legislation, it may be good to purposefully leave it vague so it gives you some room here for interpretation later. So that's,
Well, your ordinance, Russ, in letter A or letter B says been produced on the premises on an annual basis, but it doesn't really define what annual is.
right. And do we want to get more specific or kind of leave it open-ended?
can you do a rolling 12-month? That way, just like what Nate said, so it's a 12-month rolling average? Is that what we're looking for?
Yeah, do you think that would be good language to add in there? Maybe it's is a paragraph or a footnote, maybe annual basis is interpreted as a rolling 12-month average. I'm just
I
thinking
do,
out
for the
loud.
simple reason that if you use I was thinking about this, if you use calendar and you have somebody that opens up in like July, let's say, their numbers are skewed they're only 6
Right.
months of numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas if you put the rolling 12 months, you'll have the full 12 month to be able to compare apples to apples with everybody.
Yeah, I think that's good. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or Russ, if it said instead of annual, if it said for the most recent 12 months,
Yeah.
that kind of covers, Jennifer, what I think what you're talking about too.
That may be clearer than okay, for the last 12 months. Okay. I'll add that as a paragraph. Okay, good. That'll clear up any confusion later.
Annette, just looking at this form you just sent me, looks fine to me. All those numbers I have easily available. So
Okay, great.
So we got that figured out exactly how you want it now.
If you guys feel that it's sufficient.
Is everybody comfortable with the way it is, the way you discussed it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
We don't need to vote on it anyway, so I don't think, do we? You want us to vote on it, Russ, again?
That's up to you. It'd probably be good. I do like going to BOMA and saying that all of this, any proposed legislation was approved of unanimous or approved of by the beer board. I think it
Okay.
helps.
I don't have a problem with that. Are we ready to propose a motion?
Hey, hold
Rick?
on one second. Hey, Bradley, I have a question, or even Nate. What is the letter E talks about cider, and this is my inexperience with hard cider. What's your alcohol content on that? Is there a max that doesn't push you over to like what would be ABC kind of thing?
I understand as long as we're under the 10.2 by volume, that's set for beer, that it's treated as beer.
Okay.
Which
Nate,
all
I believe that-
all ciders will serve will be well under 10.2%.
I figured.
alcohol by volume.
Okay. I didn't know if somebody was pushing the limits of hard cider out there. And we needed to be more specific, but I figured at some point it's got to reach then the ABC level, because then it would be classified as hard alcohol, correct? Am I wrong, or?
That's correct.
Okay.
As far as the state of Tennessee is concerned, yes.
Okay. Do we need to put any of that verbiage in there? I mean, beer is obviously regulated by beer. Is that, or am I just reading too much into this?
Well, if we serve any beverage, whether it's cider or beer, that's over 10.2% alcohol by volume, then we would need a liquor by the drink license from the state, which we don't have.
Right.
I have something.
I would think what's probably easiest for us to leave it and let him do it, whatever the state does, and because otherwise we could have something and the state could have something different, and that could make it even more difficult.
So do we need to put something as per state regulations? Something like that? Is that what you're talking about, Rick?
No, I'm just saying that I think it's fine the way it is, because basically beer, cider, et cetera, are defined, what he can sell are defined in the state regulations, and he's got to comply with those automatically.
Okay.
I mean, we can put something, Jennifer, I don't have a problem with it. I just didn't see a need to do any more, but that was just me.
Okay.
Could I speak
Okay.
to that?
Yes.
Prentice, can I speak to that?
Sure, yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I believe our percentage is 8. All of our ordinances say 8%, Nate. That's something else I need to look into. If there's been a change, I'm not aware of that. But by volume, it's 8%. So we may need to look into that as well, just to be sure you're good on everything.
I believe that's 8% is alcohol by weight, which is how all the state ordinances list the alcohol percentage. I was converting it to alcohol by volume, but yeah, it's 8% is the limit, alcohol by weight, ABW.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm not super familiar with all that terminology, so thank you so much. So we
But
should
you
be
know
good
this
because
stuff, Nate, you might want to get into the brewery business.
So are we ready to take a vote? So Russ can go to the board with it?
Annette, do you have something?
I do. I just want to have a point of clarification on what exactly we're voting on. Are we voting to amend the ordinance 2020-42 to add that language after annual basis?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Do we need to add it, or can we just replace the word annual with the other definition, Russ? Which do you think is better?
I propose, and that's up to y'all, that if you're looking at subparagraph B, that after annual basis, you put a comma and say determined by the last 12 months of sales.
Fine.
Everybody good with that?
Yes.
If y'all are, that's my proposal, and I'm open to suggestions.
That sounds good.
So move.
Okay. We got Annette, call the roll.
I'm sorry, who was the first? Rick, were you the second or the first?
No, I was the
apologize.
first. Brad was the second.
Brad, okay. Sorry. Okay, all in favor of the motion as proposed to amend ordinance 2020-42. Aye for in favor, no for opposed. Charles Alexander,
Aye.
Brad Finch,
Aye.
Rick Fox,
Aye.
Jennifer Moats,
Aye.
Prentice Oldham.
Aye.
Okay, passed unanimously.
Okay. We got anything else? Russ, you got anything?
Annette had put on the agenda or the email to discuss the what was that you wanted to discuss, Annette, about the special events permits?
Yes, the special occasion, thank you, Russ. The
Occasion.
special occasion permit last month at the meeting when Sam and Holiday Fest came back before the board to get additional special occasion permits. The question was brought up as to why they were there, thought that we approved the 12 originally, which is how the ordinance reads. But and really this is just for clarification, and maybe I'm interpreting it, maybe I'm reading too much or not reading enough into it, but at the initial coming before the board, the applicants are asked to provide the name of the vendors that will be supplying the beer and the venues, and to supply a list of the events and their dates. And really, I guess this is up to you guys and maybe interpretation, but you are approving those that, yes, they can have up to 12 events, but you're approving those 7, let's say, that came before you initially. The others were not on that list. It does go on to say the written notice and date of time of each event shall be given to the director of finance or the city administrator's designated representative at least 45 days in advance of the event. Here of late, we've not been getting that much notice. And I guess we need to clarify, and I don't know if we need to amend this section again to state that if they are not on the initial list approved at the first of the year, that they must come back if an additional event is added, or if you guys want to let the written notice of the date and time of each event and let's see, let me skip down here, where I am supposed to notify the beer board in advance of each event. You may want to approve the initial ones, and if they come back and have, let's say we approve 7, they come back and have 5 more, that's their 12, but they didn't submit those additional 5 to you originally. If you want to go ahead and let that be approved and me just notify you that there was a different event, or if you want them to come back to the board.
I thought the way we did it was they had to come back, to the board if they added events.
It doesn't well, that's the thing. It's a little gray area, I think. It doesn't say specifically if they add events. It just says, it says if the vendor or venue of any of the events change, they must come back before the board. It doesn't address if there are additional events. And I'm not trying to create a mountain out of a molehill, but since the question was, arose last month, I wanted to get your opinions and clarification on that, of what the beer board desires.
I guess it's just one member, and that I would think the same as Prentice. We approved 7 tonight. If they want 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, they come back.
That's the way I interpret it.
Okay, that's the
Well,
way I did.
Can I
Go
say?
ahead.
Can I say something? Is the drafter of this the revised special occasion permit? I can tell you the intent behind this, and the way I interpret, even as a plain reading of this, is that the permit holder, Rock Castle, just needs to get a permit for the year, and that's actual year 2021. They just need to get a permit to be able to have a special occasion permit. They like what came tonight with Rock Castle. I didn't see that it was necessary to go ahead and list when the events will take place, just that it will take place at Rock Castle and who the vendor will be, and that's Half Batch Brewery. And so they just get the permit. And if you look at the second highlighted part that you sent, all Rock Castle needs to do is give you
That's
a
right.
net 40 notice of when the 12, any of their events up to 12 will take place, as long as it's provided 45 days in advance. And then you can just email that to the beer board of when it will take place. And if there's an issue, then it can be addressed by the beer board. That was my intent. That was the intent behind this language. And that's the way I interpret the plain reading. If something like that needs to change, if it needs to be changed, we probably can. I think there was, and I can see how, because we had an issue come up where we had to have a date change, and that was before the 45 days in advance of the event. I don't know how that can be changed, because the way it's written is they have to do it 45 days. So if that needs to be revised, we can maybe talk about that.
Yeah, but that's 45 days associated with an additional event, not a change to a pre-approved event, right?
The way it's written is that they just have to give 45 days advance notice of any event. And if they change an event, it has to, they have to give no, it has to be within 40, it has to be outside of the 45 days.
Which is
So
difficult, because what if you have an event that gets rained out and they want to move it to 2 weeks later, kind of thing.
That may be something we need to address, because
Well, but wait a minute, Russ, in the first part, and in that highlighted, it just says, should a vendor or venue for any of the events change, that's vendor or venue,
yeah,
they come back. So maybe that part should just say date as well.
we can do that. We can, that's a good idea. If it should change. So the question is, do we want to require, like Rock Castle, to go ahead and approve of all the dates when they get their special occasion permit? And then if any of those potential dates change, then they have to come back before the beer board. Because like if Rock Castle got their permit now, they might not know all the events for the entire year. I don't know.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, they've been approved for 12. So these 7 are identified. Now, while they may yet shift based on conditions, weather, whatever, COVID pandemic, at the end of the day, outside of these specified 7, they have a 45-day notice requirement to identify the additional 5, whether it's one by one or all 5 together. But they've been granted a permit for 12.
Right, you're right. But let's say it's like Jennifer just said, if what just came up where they had something got rained out and they just want to move it 2 weeks later, the 45 days, technically, if you follow the letter of the law, they were not permitted to do that because it was within the 45 days.
Well, maybe we need to put something in there saying excluded previously approved events.
I guess, to me, I thought the purpose of this whole special occasion permit was that if Rock Castle, for example, pairs with Nate with his half batch, that we're basically as a group saying we're good with his protocols, and they have up to 12 events a year to use with Nate at Rock Castle.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I thought the whole purpose of this. And that way, if there's anybody else that comes along that's not half batch, or maybe it's bluegrass like it was one time, they have to come to the beer board because it is a different vendor, but it's still at Rock Castle. That's how I understood all of this work, that if you change the vendor, that's when they got to come back and give us that information.
I think that's what we voted on, wasn't it, Jennifer?
That's what I thought. I guess I'm not as hung up on dates so much in the 45 days. All I think about is, okay, if it's Nate and Historic Rock Castle, we already know his protocol. He has up to 12. Are the dates really that important to us as the beer board?
Well, and Jennifer, to your point, if all of a sudden there's a weather forecast 2 days ahead of time for a major storm or a tornado or a hurricane or something, and they move something, I mean, that's probably a good decision on their part. And it doesn't seem that we should be putting a roadblock and, you know,
Right.
impediment in front of them to make it more difficult.
Now, I would say if they do, Annette, maybe you can help on this one. If they do have to change the date, I would assume they would have to come back to you and get a new permit issued for that new date. Is that correct?
Yes.
And see, that's where we would just say to Annette, okay, that you know that, and you know, obviously it's been approved. Do we all need to know that and have to vote on that? It's a lot of extra layers to do this. I thought we were trying to simplify the whole special occasion permit.
I mean, we could change the 45 to say 14 days, and that gives them a 2-week notice. If something cancels, they just give Annette notice that they want to do it in the next 14 days.
Well, Russ, let me ask you this, just another way to look at it. That second paragraph only that she's highlighted only talks about written notice of the date and time. It doesn't talk about anything changing.
Right.
The paragraph up above is where the reference is that should something change, the permit must come back for approval. It would seem that's where the date would go. I mean, there's no 45-day time period in that first paragraph. It just says they have to come back. So if they had to move something, it would seem to me, could we not have a very specially called meeting of the beer board and deal with it?
But do we need to though,
Right.
Rick? If we've already
I don't think we do. I'm just trying to get through it.
I personally like the top. I would prefer to keep the language, the top part the same, where only if, like Jennifer was saying, the vendor or the venue changes, keep that the same, and possibly just change that 45 days to 14. That would, that's my recommendation, but I would like to hear what y'all
That
think.
still doesn't help them if it's an act of God thing, and all of a sudden you've got something a weather event or something that comes up 2 or 3 days ahead of time, Russ.
Well, we could say 10 days. So if they just want to, if something comes up and they just want to move it 10 days later, or they, you know, then they can, or we can even make it 7 days.
So you want to go from 45 to 7? Is that what you're saying,
Well,
Russ?
I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know.
Russ, would it be better, instead of trying to change any of this, to just add a sentence in there somewhere that talks about if an event has to be changed due to act of God or some event, that this is what they do?
Possibly.
Yeah,
That one can be.
just call it a force majeure, Russ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's come up a lot with all this COVID stuff. So that
Yeah,
can
no
be.
kidding.
Yeah.
There's a COVID well, we're in the middle of an outbreak, but they could use another COVID outbreak as a reason under the force majeure.
So do you want us to vote on changing it from 45 to 7, or do you just want to do that?
I'd rather let Russ come back with some language dealing with this specific thing, that if something requires a date change, how it should be handled, then we vote on that, because Russ, you'd be the expert in how it should be written.
Well, I would like to get with John Bradley, the city attorney, and Annette
That's
to
fine.
craft something and come back, because John would be good of getting a legal opinion, what he thinks.
So Ross, question, what are we trying to curtail, I guess is my question. What are we trying to avoid happening? Somebody changing the date and.
Well, not be limited to that 45-day window, because like if something got moved and they had to move it, an event 2 weeks later, they technically can't do that because they're within the 45 days. It's not over 45 days out to give notice to Annette of their event.
So can we put language in there that if it had already been approved though, and they changed the date, that only Annette needs to issue them a new permit for the new date?
But technically, a date doesn't need to be approved. They're approved. They have the permit. They just give notice of their dates to Annette.
Right. But, okay, so like I was saying, if somebody has an event on today, December 3rd, and or decides to cancel it and push it back to December 10th, the permit was written for today when Annette hands it to him, correct? Annette, you hand it with just today.
Yes.
So are we wanting to just allow those people to come back to Annette to say, okay, we've rescheduled to the 10th. Can we have a permit that states the 10th now?
Yeah, well, I mean, do we even need, I mean, what's the significance in having the notice? Why can't they
That's what
just have a permit and they can use it up to 12 times a year? Does it matter? And I'm just thinking out loud here, does it really matter of the 45 days as long as they give notice to Annette to say, hey, we're doing it on this date, and she can issue them a permit? Is it that big of a deal to give advance notice?
Well, to Annette's point, what if there's a conflicting event with another event host that would be associated with the date they want to move it to, and they were unaware of that? I mean, we need to know when these events approximately are going to take place, because, you know, Rock Castle is going to be scheduled, you know, for a number of things.
Right.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
The reason that the dates and times were put in here originally, I believe the board had requested that information and to be made aware of that, whether it was initially or to be just notified as those things were upcoming. Since we do them all at once, they just wanted notification of when it took place. And that's why that's in there. As far as the 45 days initially, the way the previous ordinance was written, it was 10 days. But the reason we changed that was because 10 days in other situations wouldn't allow us to get it on the agenda for the beer board, like if it was an initial application. Now, as far as the change that you guys are talking about, if there's a change in a pre-approved event, that would be fine. And that would be fine with me. We probably do need to get with John, as Russ said. That would be fine just to reissue one if it falls within this, but I'm not sure that we need to change the number of days. But Russ, that's something that we can discuss when evaluating this ordinance.
Okay.
Russ, maybe as you talk to John, maybe again, after that sentence of 45 days, you could just add some language that says that if an event approved date has to change, that the director of finance or the city administrator's designated representative has the power, for lack of a better word, to change the date and issue a new permit and advise the beer board of doing so.
Okay.
The 45 days to me, I thought, like, I'm with Annette, I thought it was for new applications. The ones that were coming to us for approval, blanket approval or singular approval. That's what I thought the 45 days was for.
It doesn't seem logical to me that, like these 7 events, as Brad said, we've approved tonight, that they'd have to come back 45 days ahead of time if for some reason the date changed.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so we don't need to change. We want to just leave it as it is now. Is that correct? So we don't need to take a vote on anything.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I'll talk to I'll get with Bradley and John Bradley and Annette before the January beer board meeting and hopefully have something proposed.
Okay. Do we have anything else?
Have they been
Annette?
any stings, Annette, or has that all been called off because of COVID?
I don't know the basis for it, but there have not been any additional ones.
Okay.
We have received no notification of that. And the only other thing I had was just to, again, make the beer board aware that Holiday Fest, the permit that we approved last month, at last month's meeting, they did not pick up their permit. And I spoke to the nonprofit representative, and I think it was just a miscommunication between who was supposed to pick it up. But as the ordinance reads that we wanted to, or as you guys had asked, that you be notified if that were to happen. And it is a basis of it being approved. And if you look, and I'm not, as Rick says, I'm not out to get anybody by any means, but I just want to point out on the section 4, the special occasion permit, it's clearly laid out that they need to pick it up, and that that if there's any violation of the ordinance, the organization that granted it shall appear before the beer board to determine what action will be appropriate, and may include revocation of the permit. I mean, we know that that's worst case scenario, but that is in the language of the ordinance. So again, this is just making you aware of that situation, and that is up to you guys. Maybe that's something else we need to look at, or you need to look at to include in this.
That was at Rock Castle too, right?
That is correct.
What event was that, Annette?
It was the Christmas for Kids benefit. They were having, I believe, our meeting was on the 5th of November and the event was on the 7th. So it was immediately after. And I did try to talk to Parks personnel today. I had not spoken to them prior to this, and I did not get a response. They just didn't, they may be out of office. So just to get that side, but based on what I was told, there appears to have been a miscommunication as to who was supposed to get it. So, you know, I know we broached this earlier with who could pick up for Rock Castle. Maybe we need to specify who needs to pick up. I don't know. I don't know how hard nosed you want to be about this, but.
Well, Annette, don't you, I know you do it here, so I'm sure you're telling the people, reminding them, at least initially, that they have to come and see you and pick them up.
Absolutely. We sure are. And there have been cases where Sherry, the finance administrative assistant, has called people and said you need to get them, but time does not always allow her to do that. That really, the responsibility really falls on the applicants.
Yeah, they're the ones, that should be their responsibility, period.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that the miscommunication, and I don't really care who did what, has been cleared up, so it shouldn't happen again, Annette?
Well, I did send an email immediately upon learning of that, and that's where the conversation ensued. I feel like, yes, that they understand that needs to be picked up. It's very imperative and important that that's picked up before the events occur. It was
purely for education point of view, in a perfect world, which we don't live in, should it have been someone from Rock Castle that picked up the permit?
Well, in the Holiday Fest example, the one that I was speaking. Okay. Yes. Could Rock Castle have picked up for them? Is that what you're asking?
Well, who in a perfect world, who was the right person to have picked up that particular permit?
I personally believe the representative of the nonprofit. The nonprofit is the one that applies and gets the approval. I believe they should be the one to get it.
Okay.
Or representative of them, not a sponsor of them or a representative of a city department. Now that would be easy and accessible, but that's just my opinion. You asked.
That's what I wanted to know. And you feel, in your opinion, that person or those individuals understand going forward that they have that responsibility?
Yes, I do, and I will reiterate that. I can let them know that this was discussed and the importance of picking that up.
I guess my 2 cents would be that I would trust you to be able to effectively communicate that. And if somehow there's a difficulty in comprehending, then we could invite, and it happens a second time, we could invite them to honor us with their presence at a future beer board meeting.
Okay. That's definitely doable.
But that's only my opinion. I don't know how the others feel.
That's fine with me. I agree with you.
Hey, Russ, what are the legal ramifications for not having the beer permit on display? Just out of curiosity.
I mean, I don't know. That probably question should probably be directed to John Bradley. I don't think they can, I don't think the police can, I mean, if the police, I guess, could come up and ask to see the actual permit, I don't think any arrests or anything can be made. It would probably just come back before us, and it would come back before the beer board because of a violation for not actually being in possession of a permit.
Okay.
And so I guess their permits could, I guess, whatever y'all decide to do, you
Right.
could have the power to revoke their permit. If it's a special occasion year permit, that could technically be yanked, I guess. But I'm not the city attorney, so don't rely on that.
Nate, were you the purveyor at this event?
Yes, we were there.
For what it's worth, I know you and I have had this conversation in the past about if I were you, I'd make darn well sure that the permit was there just to protect you. So for darn well sure, again, Nate, I'd make sure the permit, if I were you, I'd make sure the permit was there to protect yourself.
Absolutely. I know sometimes we're rushed setting up for these things, but I'm going to make a conscious effort going forward to make sure that the physical permit's on the site.
I think you really need to do that for your own protection as well as anything else. It's just good business.
Anyone have anything else? Annette,
I don't. That's all.
Russ, you have anything else?
No, sir.
We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Would you call the roll, please, Annette?
I will. Those in favor of adjournment, say aye. No proposed. Charles Alexander,
Aye.
Brad Finch,
Aye.
Rick Fox,
Aye.
Jennifer Moats,
Aye.
and Prentice Oldham.
Aye. We are
And-
adjourned.
We
Hope
are.
everyone has a great Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Y'all have a good one.
Thanks.
Hey.